Sheri, I wanted to ask you about big changes with the deprecation of IDFA and the sort of unwinding of the third-party cookie. A lot of changes, a lot of concerns about privacy. Where does that stand in terms of the utility of AI in the ecosystem broadly? And maybe you could sort of explain some use cases of sort of how that works.
Absolutely. So, with identifiers going away and all the legislation, I think it's time for the advertising industry to have a new backbone. And we believe that backbone is AI. AI can do a lot of different functions as far as it can do predictions. It can really look at mass quantities of data to help a marketer better spend their money and to identify the right target audience. So it really is about augmenting that human process. If you look at what programmatic was, 8, 10 years ago, that's about an automated process. But AI is so much different. That predictability is going to be really crucial as we move into this new era from an advertising perspective.
So tell us a little bit about the challenges that marketers have. So a company has great first-party data, let's say, not all do, but some do. How does AI help them kind of bridge the gap now with identifiers being so diminished?
Well, the great thing about it is AI and AI solutions, and we've been working on this for some time at IBM, really doesn't depend on the identifiers and the cookies. So it can look at different types of data set. It can look at behavioral data. It can look at more demographic type data, contextual data, and it can help a marketer still target users. So targeting is not going away, it's just changing and it's evolving. And frankly, it's becoming more privacy first, which is a good thing for consumers.
So where does the Watson product kind of plug in, if you will? Not to get too deep in ad ops, but how does it work, and how is it part of the ad ops scenario?
So what we've been working on for several months now is actually a suite of AI-driven products that can help solve against the lack of identifiers and cookies. And these products have different functions. They range from a product that we just released back at the beginning of the year that's based on dynamically assembling creative, but then providing insights back to marketers based on AI. So that's a great product as far as a creative product using AI. And then this summer, we launched a social product. So it's a social product used with the partner with Influential that can help brands find that right influencer. And so we know that consumers are spending money based on what influencers are marketing, but it's really hard to find that right influencer because you have to look through so much data, right? You have to look at the tone of the influencer, what some of their messaging are. So you want to make sure you're picking that trusted influencer that's right for your brand. So AI can come through all of that data, so all that mounds of data to find that right influencer for the brand, so then they can market that way. And then you can use data. And so, not only from an advertising perspective, but also I sit on the side of a publisher as the weather company. We can use weather data mixed with Nielsen shopping data to determine maybe when there'll be the right trends for certain products being sold. We know that from a weather perspective that weather influences mood. And so people have certain buying behaviors when they feel a certain way. So you can leverage that kind of data and combining that first party data like weather, like shopping data, to then drive sales for, brick and mortar stores or for online sales. So those are kind of three different ways that you can use AI in different products. And then actually we will also be doing more targeting and contextual targeting. Contextual is going to be really important, I think, to publishers in the future. So being able to use AI, again, to be very predictive in that area.
Tell us sort of your thoughts as a publisher and what you would like to sort of have your colleagues know as they prepare for these changes.
So definitely you have to prepare, right? You can't just, think that this is going to go away. This is the future, right? Being consumer privacy driven, which I actually think is a good thing, and I actually support the changes. Being a publisher, I do believe that, consumers should have the right to control the data that they're sharing. So I think that that's important. So it is about preparing, and it's, can you build a first party data strategy? And it really comes down to that trust with your user or your consumer. Do you have a relationship with your user that they are willing to provide some value in exchange for the free services you're, offering? I mean, if you look at with us with weather, we're providing very valuable information to consumers, and we underwrite that with advertising. So for a consumer to share that information so we can better target those advertisers is really important for us to be able to continue to provide that service for free. I have 200 meteorologists that it takes to deliver that forecast, right? And I think so building that value of exchange with your consumer is critically important in making sure that you're providing that valuable content. So that's really important. And then for the consumers, that don't want to underwrite it with advertising, and we've actually done a lot of surveys with our consumers, and they don't mind relevant ads. They actually think it improves their experience. They just want to make sure the data that they're providing is safe. But for those users that don't want the advertising, then there's always the subscription path. And we've started down that path as well, and that's been very successful. So giving the consumer the choice of how to underwrite the content, I think is really important for publishers to think about.
And Sheri, finally, tell us what's going on with weather. Not the weather; it's crazy, and of course, it's driven so many factors in our world now. And tell us sort of about the growth of your service, and also maybe the mission, how that's changed. But give us an update on weather.
Yeah, so our mission hasn't changed. It's always been to keep people safe. And now more than ever, as we're seeing the climate change, it's so important to get forecasting and accurate forecasting. And actually, we just released a new model, a weather model that came out to improve short-term forecasting, not only for the US and Europe, but everywhere in the world. And so there's places in emerging markets that they don't have sophisticated satellites, or they don't have, the government support to bring on the right forecasting tools. So we've been able to provide now a short-term forecast that makes it a level playing field for everyone around the globe. So a farmer in Kenya can have just as much access to a great forecast as a farmer in Kansas. And so that's really important, because as we see our climate changing, it's the severity of the weather that's changing. Now, this year, just in line with COVID, has been a very, very unusual weather year. And the tropical season has definitely been so extremely active. And so as we start seeing severe weather, whether it's tropical or whether it's excessive heat, being able to better forecast that can help people make decisions on what they need to do for their families or for their businesses, as it relates to the impacts that weather can have.